All right, here we go. We're at the third subheading, the second heading of Chapter 39, which is End of Empire or Decolonization. So, previous lecture, I told you just briefly about some of the attitudes and ideas that led to the independence of these African nations in Sub Saharan Africa. And right now, I'm going to talk to you about how it actually came to pass. So, we've got they were at different levels of violence or nonviolence. We're going to talk of one which is primarily nonviolent, which is going to be in Ghana, and we're going to talk about one which is basically violent, which is going to be in Kenya, both with the same European country, with Britain. So we're going to start with the first one, Ghana, and so a lot of that had to do with this leader named Nkrumah. So Kwame Nkrumah is not only going to help the people of Ghana get independence from Britain, but he's going to be a very persuasive spokesperson for the idea of Pan-African unity. Other things that happened is that it's important to note that it was seen as relatively nonviolent, but there were times when Nkrumah and others were put under jail terms or repressive control, and they were able to keep at it. One of the other things that he was a very persuasive speaker. Make sure that you take a moment to take a look at this speech that Nkrumah made that's in your book about African unity. One of the things that's noted is just how when Queen Elizabeth would come by, yes, the Queen Elizabeth that we still see today, when she was younger, they would go, she went and she visited Africa. And during this, what was happening is it was very symbolic, is that the royals arrived and they um, they helped the peace happen by treating the African leaders as equals, in this case in Ghana. So that's going to be a very powerful picture, and these posters and so on and so forth are really emblematic of the change that's happening. Uh, Kenya, not so much. So what happens is that Kenya, same colonial master here, Britain, but the situation was much more um, was much more violent. And a lot of this had to do with the white settlers that had British settlers that had come there. So what happened is the primary group that was trying to get their independence was the Kikuyu, which is one of Kenya's largest ethnic groups. Like to today, is still seen as one of the largest tribes, essentially, or ethnic groups in Africa. And so what's going to happen is that there's going to be the Kikuyu tribes are going to really push for, and in some cases have violence to try to get their independence. So what's going to happen is their main leader is going to be Kenyatta, which I'll talk about in a second. But whereas the British tried to set this up, or the white settlers there were trying to set this up as just, you know, these evil people were trying to gain power for their race. Britain was a part of this. Their land policies in Kenya caused a lot of issues for the Kikuyu and the other people living in Kenya. So what had happened is in the 30s and 40s, white settlers had these groups, pushed these groups off of the best farmland, and so that essentially turned them into slaves to work on this land, or pushed off into land that wasn't very good. So whether they're labor strikes or violent action, what's going to eventually happen is that Britain is going to essentially turn down, is going to crush this military resistance eventually by 56. But what's important to note is it's one of these cases where even when you win, you lose, or sometimes even when you lose, you win. A horrible situation to be in. But what's going to happen is that eventually what's going to be very clear on the international stage is just how racial this domination is in Kenya. And so even though they were able to kind of push down the Kikuyu, what's going to happen is that they are the international fervor and just the blatantness of how wrong it was is going to be so clear to Britain that eventually they're going to the Kenya is going to be able to negotiate their independence. And so again, these groups such as Kenyatta are going to start to create their own political parties, and it's just clear it's like they're going to run their own country. And so that's an example of both a relatively peaceful and a relatively violent um, uh, quest for independence for two different African nations.